A visit to Baltimore to buy a car turns deadly.
My heart hurts so bad for the family.
New tonight, what sparked the confrontation that left a teen dead?
It truly doesn't help the image of Baltimore at all.
Lawmakers meet again to address juvenile crime statewide, why many are unsatisfied, and what some say needs to happen to solve this crisis. New data shows performance in Maryland schools is declining. Fox 45 News Project Baltimore looks at the factors some say is behind the drop in student achievement. The Baltimore County Council coming under fire after proposed amendments to strip powers from the Inspector General.
And they, in fact, handcuffed the office to not act freely.
Her calls to residents for help.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
State lawmakers are holding a third hearing on juvenile justice laws amid a surge in youth crime across the state.
Fox 45 News continues to hear from residents who fear for their safety and feel lawmakers aren't listening to their concerns.
Baltimore is not it at all. It's very, very dangerous out here.
These kids don't have consequences, and that's what makes me very angry.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Mary Bubala. This hearing comes as violence involving young people continues to grip the state.
And a teen and his parents are indicted in a shooting at Carverville Tech in Baltimore as 4 Baltimore County teens face armed carjacking charges.
That's right. In West Baltimore, a Facebook marketplace exchange between 2 teens turns deadly. Now tonight, we have team coverage as Mackenzie Frost has the fallout from today's hearing in Annapolis.
We begin with Keith Daniels and the car sale turned shooting in West Baltimore. Keith?
Well, Kai and Mary, Baltimore City Police are working this one. An 18-year-old man travels from Pennsylvania to Baltimore looking for a good deal on a car. But tonight we've learned that trip cost him his life. It's a deadly incident sending shockwaves across the city.
Oh my God, that's sad. My heart hurts.
At a bus stop in West Baltimore, the circumstances eerily familiar to 18-year-old Kennard Lovett. The high school senior heard about what happened, thought about himself.
That truly messed up my head because I've been trying to buy stuff off of Facebook Marketplace for a while. I wanted a scooter for Christmas, like one of them fast ones.
According to charging documents obtained by Fox 45 News, 18-year-old Carlos Carazana Ricardo was shot and killed while trying to buy a car after seeing the ad posted on Facebook Marketplace. The suspect in the murder, 18-year-old Marquise Harris. Investigators say Ricardo, with a friend, drove to Baltimore from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, to buy the car from Harris. Police say Ricardo met Harris on Harlem Avenue at North Dukeland Street. According to charging documents, after looking at the car, Ricardo decided to leave without buying it. Police say as he was driving away, gunshots rang out from the rear. A bullet hit Ricardo in the head, killing him.
If I came all the way here, I don't live here, and I came all the way here to look at a car and buy a car, and now I'm dead, that's really messed up, to be honest. It truly doesn't help the image of Baltimore at all, because bad enough, Baltimore already has that reputation, and the people out here are just not helping it.
The deadly shooting happened just over a week ago, November 26, at about 7:30 that night. Police arrested Harris on Saturday at his home on Hollands Ferry Road. Documents say, among other things, detectives used the suspect's cell phone number to find him and say a witness identified him. Harris faces several charges, including first and second-degree murder and attempted murder. In the case of a visitor to the city, now a victim of deadly violence.
We need work, man. We need help. Because whatever we're doing is not working. And it's not a Democratic or a Republican thing. It's a we thing. It's a people thing.
Well, as of this morning, the city had seen 250 homicides. That's down significantly from
Well, youth violence impacts Baltimore County. Police say 4 teens, including 3 juveniles, were charged with armed carjacking in Towson. It happened on Charles Street near a Starbucks. Police tracked down the stolen car at Mondawmin Mall, where the 4 teens were arrested. The description of the suspects given to police mirrors an aggressive attempted carjacking in Roland Park a few hours before the one in Towson. Now, Fox 45 News spoke to the victim, who says a group tried to corner her in a parking lot. She thought quickly, crashed into the suspect's car, then got away.
I just felt like I was a sitting duck. And I stopped in the parking lot for a second, and I saw out of the corner of my eye them coming back down Roland. I don't think they saw me.
Now, in both instances, police dispatch audio revealed the suspects were driving a white BMW. We reached out to police to see if the two incidents are connected. So far, we haven't heard back.
The Baltimore City State's Attorney's Office announcing more than 36 charges against a 15-year-old and his parents after a triple shooting at Carver High School in October. According to charging documents, the father and mother drove their son to school and stood by as he pistol-whipped allegedly another teen before helping him assault the teen. That's according to police. Police say the son then began exchanging gunfire with another teen. Both were shot, as well as a third teen.
City State's Attorney Ivan Bates says he was stunned to see the incident on camera, calling for more accountability from parents who not only allowed their child to beat another teen allegedly, but helped him as well. He says the parents should be in prison. Bates also addressed the state's youth crime laws. We'll hear more from him in a moment.
Concerns from police and prosecutors coming as state lawmakers hold another juvenile crime hearing, ending once again with more questions than answers. Tonight, we're taking a closer look at the timeline of violence as the state government waits to act. On September 13th, Maryland lawmakers hold their first hearing surrounding the juvenile crime crisis. It focused on two specific laws, the Juvenile Justice Reform Act and the Juvenile Interrogation Protection Act. Prosecutors and law enforcement saying these laws keep them from holding young offenders accountable.
Come in, we can't detain them, they're back in the community the next day.
After 5 hours of questioning, lawmakers ultimately agreed to continue the conversation at a later date. On the same day as that hearing, police in Baltimore City arrest a third teenage suspect in connection to the Brooklyn Day mass shooting, the city's largest mass shooting, which killed 2 young people and injured 28 others. The mother of one of those victims pleading with city leaders to hold young offenders accountable.
What's your normal? I challenge you, what is your normal? Let them take each other out. Is that your normal?
Just 3 days later, September 16th, 4 juveniles are shot in a 2-hour time span ranging in age from 14 to 17 years old. On October 20th, a string of early morning carjackings and armed robberies are reported across Canton and Federal Hill. One of those attacks caught on a Ring camera. Blood-curdling screams waking up neighbors who say a dog walker was punched in the face by a group of young people before running off. A week later, October 27th, 3 teens are injured in a shooting right outside Carver Vocational High School. 2 15-year-olds and 2 parents are now facing charges. On November 2nd, a woman is attacked by a 12 and 14-year-old in Butchers Hill. Those juveniles were arrested but released to their parents just 2 hours later.
The law, I'm pissed off at the law.
Fox 45 News later learning the 12-year-old in that attack is connected to a string of car thefts over the summer in Baltimore County. On November 6th, Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott and BPD Commissioner Richard Worley sound the alarm on juvenile car thefts. The city reporting more than 9,300 cars stolen at the time, and youth car thefts up more than 166%. On November 8th, lawmakers again holding a hearing. State representatives grilling local police and members of the state's juvenile services effort to find out where programs are failing and what laws need to change. The biggest concerns, a lack of accountability and the high number of repeat offenders. In the meantime, kids keep breaking the law. On November 25th, police telling Fox 45 News 15 juveniles were arrested over a week's time for a string of crime, including armed robberies and car thefts. And on November 29th, a Baltimore County woman living just outside the city is attacked as she walks from her car to her home.
I was parked right over there.
The 72-year-old says she was approached by 2 boys who hit her with a gun and stole her car.
These kids don't have consequences, and that's what makes me very angry. And I am furious, and I'm going after these. I want to prosecute. I want to see some type of retribution.
That brings us to today, just a month from the January legislative session, state lawmakers now meeting for a 3rd time. And during today's hearing, lawmakers heard from various program leaders from across the state who deal with juvenile crime. They also heard from a judge, one delegate asking that judge if young people are worried about the consequences for committing crime.
prior to the deadlines on probation, that children were more afraid of being on probation because it was for a longer period of time. The fact now, though, is that I think that shortness of getting these programs started, getting them into the program, and they know that here's a date that is deadline, either going to be successful or unsuccessful, that takes away from the consequences of them realizing that they're not going to be done with us until they either age out or until they successfully complete the programs.
Well, Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost was in Annapolis for the hearing this afternoon. She's questioning state leaders on the timing of a potential juvenile crime plan and what could be included.
For months, lawmakers have been hearing from police, prosecutors, the Department of Juvenile Services, and other stakeholders looking at ways to curb juvenile crime. And now leaders here in Annapolis say after hearing all of that, they're ready to start drafting a plan.
Everyone, please take your seats.
The House Judiciary Committee held the third and likely final
The Department of Juvenile Services will do an intake
hearing before the next legislative session, all focusing on juvenile crime.
There are a number of pieces of legislation that are being considered.
Tuesday, 6 different groups talked about their efforts to curb the surge in young people committing crimes. One group in Prince George's County clearly telling lawmakers the types of crime they are seeing young people commit.
Handguns, gun offenses, carjackings, robberies, the assaults with guns, shootings. Those are the most prevalent.
Right now, kids 13 and younger cannot be charged with nonviolent misdemeanor offenses like car theft. Delegate Robin Grammer, a Republican from Baltimore County, bringing up an example of young children simply cycling through the system.
There's a particular youth in my district who is known to commit car thefts, and when he deals with the police, he says, "I'll see you tomorrow."
The same situation as the 12-year-old seen here on this surveillance video with a 14-year-old in Baltimore City's Butchers Hill neighborhood. A woman assaulted and robbed. Fox 45 News later confirming that 12-year-old, the same one, connected to a string of car thefts in Baltimore County over the summer. Each time he was picked up by police and sent home, never facing charges. After the hearing,
Why does a youth go into the system, come out the same day, sometimes several times in the same day, and how do we set boundaries around that?
Delegate Grammer calling for more transparency from the Department of Juvenile Services and a plan to hold kids accountable for the crimes they're committing.
I think the reality of the nature of the crimes themselves, you heard the chair talk about that as well. Department of Juvenile Services says juvenile crime is down 66%. That is absolutely false. It might be down from their point of view, but it doesn't mean the real legitimate juvenile crime is happening.
There are some questions as to, how much juvenile crime do we have?
Right.
Depending on who you talk to, you have a lot of different ways of looking at it.
Chairman Luke Clippinger, a Democrat from Baltimore City, says the last 3 hearings have been about gathering information from everyone involved, and now it's time to draft actual policy.
We have some work to do. It's going to be, I think, a comprehensive package that's going to touch on a lot of different areas.
From the House perspective, do you see a complete repeal of the juvenile justice laws that have really been at the center of this debate?
I think that what we've learned is that there are some parts of them that work and some parts of them that don't. Whether it's just the changes to the JJRA, there are going to be some changes to the JJRA. Are there going to be changes to the system as a whole? Yeah.
Whether it's changes to the length of probation for young offenders, to tweaks to how kids are monitored, or requiring certain programs, lawmakers have yet to settle on a solution. And while Chairman Clippinger says he's talked with the governor and his team about plans, Governor Westmore has vowed to roll out his own juvenile crime proposal.
The public will see our complete rollout prior to the legislative session.
When?
And we're working in partnership with both Democratic and Republican leaders.
But so far, that is yet to happen. We'll be waiting for the details to be rolled out, which likely won't take place until the General Assembly session begins on January 10th. And no doubt will juvenile crime dominate most of the debate during the 90-day session. In Annapolis, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Mackenzie mentioned those laws in question, which have been in place since last summer. Some Democrats are standing by the laws, saying there hasn't been enough time to evaluate their effectiveness.
Laws that we put in place are going to take a couple of years to fully see the fruit of the foundations that we've laid and the seeds that we've planted. I, for one, am not interested in rolling back the reforms that we put in place last year.
Baltimore City State's Attorney Ivan Bates addressed juvenile crime laws on Fox 45 News at 5 o'clock, saying the system in place impacts his office's ability to do its job.
Those cases don't come to the prosecutor, to us. They go to DJS first. DJS has 25 days to decide what to do with that case. Sometime it may take longer. So by the time we as prosecutors get that case, we're now 30, 40, 60 days before we reach out to the victim for the first time. It makes prosecuting cases very difficult, makes reaching out to victims very difficult, and it makes giving certain consequences to, swift consequences to juveniles impossible.
Governor Wes Moore telling Fox 45 News the laws need to be re-examined, but he hasn't offered any concrete solutions. The governor is standing by. Department of Juvenile Services Secretary Vincent Schiraldi calling him a reformer.
We're clear that when we came into office, we walked into a DJS that was understaffed and underfunded. And it's the reason why I appointed a true reformer.
Schiraldi defended the state's juvenile crime laws in a conversation with Mackenzie Frost this spring. He believes young people shouldn't be exposed to the adult prison system until they turn 25. Some former lawmakers and police leaders criticize Schiraldi, saying those policies will make Maryland less safe.
You're basically saying up until the age of 25, which is what he wants to do, you get a free ride.
Unfortunately, legislators, lawmakers, have decided that it's better to support the lawbreakers rather than those who are enforcing the law.
Schiraldi supports ending probation and parole for offenders of any age. House Speaker Adrian Jones and Senate President Bill Ferguson are two of the most powerful lawmakers in Annapolis. If you feel you're not being heard, you can contact them. Their phone numbers and email addresses are listed here on your screen.
Coming up on Fox 45 News at 10, 4 city council members who abstained from a vote on a resolution condemning anti-Semitism are defending their position after that resolution failed. Why they abstained and the ripple effect it's having tonight. A complete blindside. That's how the Baltimore County Inspector General is describing amendments made to a bill that would strip her office of most of its powers. And she's not the only one. Fox 45 News demanding answers.
And we're tracking a new storm system edging into Maryland overnight. What kind of mixed showers might it bring to the 95 corridor? And just how cold will the air be arriving in behind that system?
Some disturbing news on the state of education of Maryland. Project Baltimore examines the latest state school report card right after the break.
Newly released state data shows fewer Maryland schools are achieving at the highest levels.
Today, the State Department of Education released the Maryland School Report Card for the 2022-23 school year. Project Baltimore's Chris Papps analyzed the numbers, which show an overall decline in school performance.
The State Department of Education is calling the latest report card the new baseline. Here's how the numbers break down. This year, 85 schools throughout the entire state earned a 5-star rating, which is the highest possible score. That's a major decline from last school year, when more than 200 schools earned 5 stars. The number of 4-star schools also went down, though not by much. On the opposite side of the spectrum, the number of schools with 1 star, the lowest score, also went down, which is good news. This year, 25 Maryland schools earned 1 star, compared to 39 schools last year. The star ratings measure schools on a number of factors, including academic achievement, progress, and graduation rates. The Department of Education said the decline in overall scores this year could be connected to chronic absenteeism. Due to the pandemic, school attendance has not been included in the rating system, but this year it was added back in, and chronic absenteeism rates across the state are high, around 25%.
That's one of the factors, because I think if you took a look at all those factors that go into the accountability model, without looking at each individual one saying, oh, this is really what caused this school to drop, it could be that if chronic absenteeism is an issue at your school, then you will see, you will see more of a significant drop.
Our focus right now is on improving outcomes for children and families statewide. We have a lot of work to do. And so, as we think about these ratings, we've got a lot of work to do in those areas.
If you want to know how your school did on the report card and how many stars it received, the state is expected to release the scores of the individual schools throughout the state next week. Project Baltimore will be reporting on those results. I'm Chris Papps, and this is Project Baltimore.
The Baltimore County Council is weighing a bill that could compromise the Inspector General's power. Why the IG's office says the move is a slap in the face to taxpayers.
And we're keeping an eye on HD radar this evening. We've got some wintry showers beginning to push in out of the west. Some rain in western Maryland, also a few flakes flying there as we go into the overnight hours. Some of this action headed our way and colder air behind this system. All those details coming up right here on the news.
All right, we are bracing for all of that. But look, the Inner Harbor is beautiful tonight. Stay with us. We'll be right back. The Baltimore County Council chair pushing a bill that would strip power from the county inspector general.
If passed, the policies would limit the watchdog's funding, operation, and ability to publicly publish records.
Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor details the plan and the IG's reaction.
On a mission to weed out government waste, Baltimore County's inspector general fearing the integrity of her office back on the chopping block this week.
So I am opposed to any amendments to these bills.
Back in 2021, following criticism from county leaders who attempted to restrict Madigan's authority to investigate fraud, the Blue Ribbon Commission was formed, a 7-member committee tasked with studying the office and ensuring best practices. Almost a year, 100,000 taxpayer dollars, and many meetings later, the committee releasing a comprehensive 100-page report listing 20 recommendations.
What is shocking to me is that in one fell swoop, those proposed amendments effectively undercut all of that public work and the $100,000.
Some of which were put into a bill supporting the IG's office long term. But on Tuesday, Council Chair Julian Jones blindsiding Madigan and the current administration with a list of last-minute amendments, once again threatening to strip the power of the IG's office. The amendments obstruct the IG's ability to pull internal documents during investigations by extending the amount of time the IG must wait to issue a subpoena to 90 days. An advisory board would also be created, made up of mostly county officials, requiring the IG to submit reports to the board for approval.
When you start to have different layers of oversight for the oversight entity, it kind of begins to become meaningless. We are supposed to be apolitical and follow the facts wherever they may lead. The reports are not going to be popular for necessarily elected officials.
Speaking of reports not always being popular, Jones has been the subject of 2 of your investigations. Do you think that that could have any connection to why he's proposing these amendments?
As to why he's proposing the amendments, that's a better question for Chairman Jones, but you are correct that he has been the subject of 2 separate Inspector General reports, and I stand by the work of those reports.
In one report, Madigan finding Jones inappropriately used his government email to solicit re-election donations. In another, she cited Jones for misusing public dollars to repave a private road, benefiting a Towson business owner and one of Jones's political donors.
I can't tell you how false that is.
Last November, Jones denying the allegations, but today he denied our request for an interview. Fox 45 also sending questions to his office asking why he proposed these amendments, why he ignored the Blue Ribbon Commission's recommendations, and what is his response to Madigan saying the amendments would compromise the integrity of her office. So far, no response.
It's their money that we are ensuring is spent appropriately.
Madigan now asking Baltimore County residents whose tax dollars she's trying to protect speak out in protest before the next vote on the proposed amendments takes place in 2 weeks.
So I would encourage them, what kind of watchdog do you want? Do you want a watchdog that has to report to an oversight board that consists of members of Baltimore County government of whom we have jurisdiction over? Or do you want someone who is going to follow the facts wherever they may lead and follow the rules with no special treatment for anyone? And that's the job I intend to do.
Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Madigan wasn't the only one blindsided by the amendments. On Fox 45 Morning News, we spoke with Baltimore County Executive John Ilshevsky, who says he was too surprised.
I completely understand the Inspector General's shock and surprise and outrage in this situation. Neither she nor this administration were made aware of these amendments. They were last second. We stand by our belief that the legislation that we put forward originally, that we thought was going to be adopted last night, is the right path forward for this office and for Baltimore County.
Fox 45 News will follow this developing story and keep you updated on air and online. If you'd like to contact county council members about the amendments, you can find their contact information on our website, foxbaltimore.com/newslinks.
Ahead at 10:30, 4 Baltimore City Council members defend the decision to abstain from a vote to support Israel. Their reasoning and why one councilman is pushing back.
New information in the Arlington, Virginia house explosion, why police had the suspect's home surrounded.
situation is getting worse by the hour. I mean, like there's intensified bombing going on all around, including here in the southern areas.
A warning about humanitarian conditions in the escalating war as Israel begins to target Hamas pockets in southern Gaza. Israel calling today the most intense day of fighting since the war began.
Israeli forces have circled Gaza's second largest city, where many of the remaining Hamas leaders are reportedly hiding. Millions of people have fled south, but once they reach the Egyptian border, they can't go any further. Now, here at home, lawmakers on Capitol Hill passed a resolution condemning anti-Semitism this afternoon.
In Baltimore City, a similar resolution did not pass last night.
We have team coverage of the response to the war at the local and national level.
We begin with Amy Simpson and why 4 city council members abstained from supporting the Israel resolution.
4 members of City Council now standing by their decision to sit out of last night's vote on a resolution condemning those terrorist attacks, now saying in part that measure was rushed through without discussion.
An eventful night inside Council chambers Monday.
City Council, you have blood on your hands!
Demonstrators interrupting the agenda.
Free, free Palestine!
Their cause emblazoned on hands, vocal in their message. This as a resolution to condemn the Hamas terrorist attacks on Israel and stand in solidarity with the local and worldwide Jewish population, failed to receive the required 12 votes for approval.
The resolution fails for immediate adoption.
That symbolic measure introduced by Councilman Isaac Yitzi Schleifer.
With the large Jewish population that we have here in Baltimore that is feeling very isolated and alone because of the recent events and the rise in anti-Semitism in the United States, it's important that their government can stand with them.
9 votes in favor of the resolution wasn't enough. 2 members of council, Robert Stokes and James Torrance, were not present, and 4 other council members, Christopher Burnett, Ryan Dorsey, Felicia Porter, and Odette Ramos, abstained from voting on the resolution altogether.
To me, abstaining is the wimpy way out.
Political analyst John Deedy.
And the thing is, you could be pro-Palestinian and anti-Hamas, just as you could be pro-Israel and opposing Benjamin Netanyahu.
On why someone might choose to sit out.
It's a simple resolution. It's A or B. And I think what it is you have some political leaders that are afraid to take a side. So they want to have it both ways, where they can say in the end they didn't vote for it, they didn't vote against it.
Resolutions like this have been considered before.
I'd like to point to another resolution that this city council passed.
Schleifer pointing out just 4 years ago, a resolution was passed by council condemning a terrorist attack on 2 mosques in New Zealand, standing in solidarity with the Muslim community, condemning white nationalist hate.
My resolution, as you can see in yellow, is identical to the resolution that we passed unanimously. In fact, there's only one line that is different.
Other ceremonial resolutions passed by Baltimore City Council include a 2002 measure to oppose all forms of slavery in Mauritania, a 2016 measure to condemn statements by President-elect Donald Trump, and a 2021 measure calling for the federal government to reverse sanctions against Cuba. Today, Fox 45 sending questions to the 4 council members who abstained from the vote, asking, why did you choose to abstain from the vote last night? How do you reconcile the fact that the resolution is nearly identical to council's condemnation of the terrorist attack against Muslims in New Zealand? Do you believe Hamas is a terrorist organization? And do you support Israel's right to exist? Today, we tried to catch up with some of those who abstained at City Hall. Councilwoman Odette Ramos instead directing us to a joint statement from those 4 council members this afternoon. First and foremost, we unequivocally condemn the actions of Hamas, a designated terrorist organization. The statement says, we stand in solidarity with Palestinians and Israelis who yearn for a peaceful and prosperous future. But the council members describe the resolution as last minute and claims the measure went against council rules and procedure, concerned it didn't condemn Islamophobia and all forms of hate, not just anti-Semitism. We stand by our decision to abstain in voting for an incomplete resolution that is not inclusive of all the communities and nuances of this global conflict.
Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Well, Councilman Yitzi Schleifer joined us on Fox 45 News at 4 today, expressing his frustration with those who abstained because they feel the bill was proposed without meaningful conversation.
I don't really feel that there needs to be a meaningful conversation to condemn terrorism and anti-Semitism. That should be something that any of us can condemn instantly. This sends a message to anti-Semites in Baltimore that their city government is okay with them targeting Jews.
City Council President Nick Mosby addressed the vote this morning, saying he supported the resolution to condemn the Hamas attack and anti-Semitism around the world. He says terrorism is never justified and ignorance is the enemy, whether that's in the Middle East or in the middle of East Baltimore.
The Baltimore City Police Union among the groups frustrated with the decision. The group says it stands with Israel, condemns anti-Semitism, and is praying for the safe return of the hostages still in Hamas custody.
Well, that brings us to our question of the day. Did the council members who abstained do the right thing? So far, 55% of those who voted say yes. To make your voice heard, head to foxbaltimore.com/vote.
As the House approves a resolution in support of Israel, the leaders from some of America's top universities are facing a grilling from lawmakers on Capitol Hill after a series of anti-Israel events on those campuses. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins has the fallout.
Humanitarian crisis. The president of Harvard University admitting there's a spike in anti-Semitism on Harvard's campus.
We have seen a dramatic and deeply concerning rise in anti-Semitism. I have seen reckless and thoughtless rhetoric shared in person and online, on campus and off.
The presidents of UPenn and MIT also testifying on Capitol Hill Tuesday.
We are combating this hate on our campus with both immediate and comprehensive action.
The hearing comes as these top universities face intense backlash for rising incidents of anti-Semitism.
What action has been taken against students who are harassing and calling for the genocide of Jews on Harvard's campus?
I can assure you we have robust
What actions have been taken? I'm not asking.
Actions underway.
A UPenn senior speaking at a press conference before the hearing.
36 hours ago, I, along with most of campus, sought refuge in our rooms. As classmates and professors chanted proudly for the genocide of Jews while igniting smoke bombs and defacing school property, Penn's president did choose silence.
At MIT, Jewish students say they were physically blocked from attending class by pro-Palestinian protesters. Lawmakers demanding answers for what some see as these presidents' slow and inadequate responses. The university leaders, though, short on specifics when it came to if they're actually enforcing their own rules.
I'm happy to have my office follow up.
Regardless, polling shows nearly half of all Jewish American college students say they feel physically unsafe on campus.
You're a dirty little Jew. You deserve to die. Are words said not by Hamas, but by my classmates and professors.
Both Harvard and UPenn are currently being investigated by the Department of Education over allegations they created a hostile environment for Jewish students. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins.
Police in Arlington, Virginia say the suspect is presumed dead after a police standoff led to a massive house explosion last night. That home went up in flames as police were trying to serve a search warrant. Officers were called to the home after reports of the homeowner, 56-year-old James